Welcome back, Beans Army, to another episode of the Less is More Sports Podcast, the college offseason podcast where you could say we're less of the regular season, but more of the offseason. Due to a hectic work schedule, it is just me here on the podcast today. But I want to start off by saying that I hope everyone enjoys their Super Bowl Sunday. Let me know in the comments who is going to win the big game tonight. Me personally, I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks, but let me know in the comments who's going to win, what the final score is going to be, and who is going to take home Super Bowl MVP. But ultimately, that is not what we talk about here on the show. As you all know, we talk about college football and college basketball. And this weekend, we had an amazing slate of games. So, what I wanted to come on the show today and talk about is kind of recap and give my opinions on what I saw from some of these amazing slate of games this weekend. So, without further ado, I'm going to jump right in. And I'm going to start with the fact that the St. John's Red Storm upset the number 3 ranked UConn Huskies 81 to 72 on Friday evening. And don't look now, but the Johnnies have won 9 straight. I know when I got on this podcast in the preseason and said that this team had 2009 North Carolina potential. Clearly, they haven't reached that. But 9 in a row and a win versus UConn and a historic night for Rick Pitino, notching his 903rd all-time win, tying him with Roy Williams for third most in Division I history. But ultimately, the Johnnies improved during this 9-game winning streak. Their rebounding and their interior defense. And it all points to the two-star forwards, Zuby Ejiofor and Dylan Mitchell, and them learning how to play more cohesively together. Sometimes it takes time to learn how to play with your teammates when it's your first year together. Dylan Mitchell, I've known for a while, had high potential because of his days at Montverde. But Ejiofor is the guy you cannot say enough about. When you look at a player who was all Big East tournament, and Big East most improved player in 2025. In 2026, he's upped his scoring and shot blocking by a point, and he's doubled in his assists. We have to start talking about him, if you're not already, as one of the best bigs in all of college basketball. Big East is a given. In my opinion, he is the best in the conference. And he proved it with his 21 point, 10 rebound, and 7 assist, and 3 block game against UConn. But all of this leads to the fact that St. John's is now 18 and 5, 11 and 1 in the Big East, right behind UConn at 12 and 1 for the top spot. And the only ranked team they play for the rest of the season is a rematch against the Huskies on February 25th at Gamble Pavilion. And that rematch could ultimately be what decides the Big East regular season title. But when it comes to UConn, the former number 3 ranked team in the country, because we know that's about to change after the loss, with hopes of winning a third championship in 4 years. My biggest takeaway from this game is that third championship is going to have to wait because I do not see this UConn team cutting down the nets this April. When I look at this team, I see good guard play from Solo Ball and Silas DeMary. I see solid forward play from Alex Caravan and Terrace Reed. But when I look at the 2 national championship teams and I look at this team, what those teams had that this team does not is that monster in the middle or that dominant big man. Whether it's Adama Sanogo, whether it's Donovan Clingan, this team is lacking that dominant big man that has become a staple of a Dan Hurley championship team. Maybe down the road, freshman Eric Reeby develops into that. But for this season, because they lack it, I just do not see them cutting down the nets. So if you're filling out your bracket and you're deciding who's going to win the national championship this year, I'd go ahead and cross UConn on. But that's just my opinion. But moving on to another game, Illinois versus Michigan State. Great game. Overtime game. Sparty pulled it out 85 to 82. And I'll be honest, my big takeaway from this game was that heading into this game, I was ready to make a case for Illinois being the best team in the Big Ten. Yes, even over Michigan. And they still might be. They had won 11 straight, including wins over number 9 Nebraska and number 12 Purdue. They're third in the nation in offensive rating. And to top it off, it goes to show how hard it is to win at Breslin Center. Michigan State outclassed Illinois in key possessions, and they went as their star point guard, Jeremy Fears, went. He showed why he is one of the best point guards in the nation, scoring 26, with majority of that coming in the second half and overtime, and getting his teammates open with 15 assists. And all I have left to say about this game is big time players make big time plays. But moving on to a rivalry game. Kentucky takes down number 25 Tennessee 74-71. And what I have to say about that is the comeback Cats do it again. Make that 6 games now that Kentucky has overcame a double-digit deficit and come back to win. And it's even more impressive when you factor in the injuries that Kentucky has overcome. Oh, wait, nope. I'm not going to do that. Because remember, this is what I said on the podcast. This is exactly why Kentucky goes out and spends $22 million on that roster, because of the injury history that Kentucky had last year. So, realistically, like I've said on the show, it is understandable to not be as good when you lose players like Jaden Cadence, Jalen Lowe, Cam Williams, etc. But at the same time, when you factor in all this roster construction because of what happened last year, and you go out and spend that money, it's like it kind of puts you in a rock and a hard place, because it is understandable to struggle. But at the same time, this is exactly what you were supposed to have planned for. So, anyways, won't harp too much on that. But, anyways, the main takeaway, though, being that they have now overcome 6 double-digit deficits. This identity of being a resilient team as they stay afloat amongst the top 3 in the SEC standings, this can be a dangerous mantra come March. That's what I have to take away for Kentucky. But here's what I have to take away for Tennessee. Because Nate Ament is the bigger story here for me. I was often critical of Ament, at least more than other recruiting heads, because I had questions about him handling the physicality of the college game and staying locked in at all times. But to his credit, he's answered those concerns. He's adjusted to the physicality, and he had bought into Rick Barnes' teachings because, he did coach another pretty talented player similar to Ament in Kevin Durant, which was one of his main recruiting pitches to land Nate Ament in the first place. And now he's rattled off 24.5 points per game in his previous 4, and despite the loss to Kentucky, he added another 29. So I want to get on this podcast here and say that I never questioned the talent of Nate Ament. I questioned the current physical and mental development of his game at the given time. So I just want to make that clear. But that's my takeaways from that game. Moving on to the next game. We have Houston versus BYU. Houston has defeated BYU by a score of 77-66. And now BYU has now lost 4 straight. As I said in the preseason, when BYU was ranked in the top 10 and in the top 5, I said that there may be too much hype around landing AJ DeBansa and getting Rob Wright through the transfer portal. But now BYU is coming back down to earth. But even more so, this brings up an old point that hasn't been talked about enough. Despite the numbers that he puts up, DeBansa has not translated to winning basketball to this point in his career. When you look at other top-level recruits the last couple years, Cooper Flagg, Cam Boozer, etc., all have a history of winning that AJ does not have. He lost in the NEPSA title game at St. Sebastian's. He has a second-round loss in the Chipotle Nationals with a loaded prolific prep team. And he failed to reach the Chipotle Nationals and didn't even reach a Utah State Championship with Utah Prep. So it begs the question, is AJ DeBansa Another talented player that puts up empty stats. Now, that one, I'm going to let you all decide in the comments. Let me know. But last, but certainly not least, if you couldn't tell by my name if you're watching on the YouTube channel, you know I had to talk about the Duke Carolina game, the greatest rivalry in college basketball, in which the Tar Heels won 81 to 78, a game where they led all of point 0.4 of a second the entire game. A game where Seth Trimble hits a game-winning three to sink the Blue Devils and give them their second loss of the season. I want to start by saying, as a Duke fan, coming into this game, I thought this could be a tough matchup for Duke. Despite the fact that Duke was 21-1, undefeated in the conference, has the most quad one wins in college basketball, basketball is also a game of matchups. When you look at Duke, they are an inside-out basketball team with an elite front line. The only issue is North Carolina also has a really good front line. For Patrick Ngamba, UNC has Henry Vassar. Wait, I know that wasn't the matchup you all were thinking. We all were talking about the matchup between the two superstar freshmen, and that is Cam Boozer, the projected player of the year, versus Caleb Wilson, projected top 5 pick. Two elite freshmen playing the same position. Oh, yeah. And former AAU teammates to top it off. As great of a season as Caleb Wilson has had, all the attention has gone to Cam Boozer. So I thought, with this game being at Chapel Hill, this would be the perfect opportunity for Wilson to show the world that he does deserve to be mentioned with Cam Boozer. Oh, and minor feat, as I talked about Henry Vassar earlier, Vassar was on that Arizona team that last year Duke defeated at the McHale Center and ended their season in the tournament. And much to my concerns, I was right. The first half, though, I was impressed because it felt like all the momentum favored North Carolina from, the jump after Duke built the big lead. Caleb Wilson was ready for the moment, scored 17 points, was absolutely on fire. All three of Duke's bigs picked up 2+ fouls, and that will come in very important later. But you looked up at the box score, and Duke was up 12. And you're like, oh, well, maybe Duke weathered the storm the way they know how. Maybe they'll just cruise to victory in the second half. That clearly did not happen. In the second half, Caleb Wilson got the help he needed from his teammates and from the refs. Okay, I'll stop right there because I'm not that guy. I take it back. It is wild that North Carolina only had one foul called on them in the second half. But all in all, North Carolina started playing North Carolina basketball, as cliche as that sounds. They upped the tempo, they took advantage of the Duke foul trouble, and took it into the paint, and at the perfect time got hot from three, including the game winner from Seth Trimble. This game honestly told me nothing about North Carolina, except for the fact that it's officially time to put Caleb Wilson in those top 3 draft discussions, because he was sensational. No doubt about it. But it honestly asks an even bigger question for Duke, both this season and during the Shire era. You look at some key losses the last 2 seasons. The Houston loss in the Final Four, the Texas Tech loss, and now the loss to North Carolina. This is now 3 losses in the Shire era where Duke has blown a double-digit lead in the second half. Is it time to start questioning late game philosophies for Jon Scheyer and whether or not he'll make those adjustments going forward? You all let me know in the comments. But that is some of my takeaways from this weekend's insane slate of college basketball. As always, let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this weekend's slate of games were. We look forward to bringing you new content coming out. As always, like and subscribe to the Less is More Sports YouTube and Spotify channel to get the latest updates we have on that content coming out. Be sure to follow the social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Threads. That's at Less is More Sports. And that officially concludes the segment that I wanted to talk about today. Until next time, it's your host, Les Abbott, and I'm out.